What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. We are here after another weekend. It was a busy weekend for me. If you guys checked out our community page or our Facebook page or Instagram, at Tragos Law is our handle on all of those. I posted a bunch of pictures from our mock trial competition that the FJA put on down in Miami this weekend. It was a ton of fun. We had law schools from all over the state show up and compete. They did an awesome job. And I had a first ever moment that a lot of you have asked me about that we'll discuss a little bit later in the show, but it was a first ever. And there's not a ton of firsts left in life, so that's fun. We are going to talk Alec Baldwin filing his cross complaint. And we are going to talk and give some time to the letter written by the victims' families in response to the FACDL letter that we reviewed based on the actions of the judge in the Nicholas Cruz trial. So it's kind of a twofer today. And then later tonight, we're going to dive into Chad Daybell. It is not a live. It's a pre-recorded video. Chad Daybell had his hearing on his motion to sever. We'll talk about some interesting things we learned that I didn't know before, and a potential good compromise that they talked about. So that's later tonight. But for now, we're going to get to Alec Baldwin and the Parkland case. Let me know in the comments which one you're here for. What is the primary reason you are here? Is it Baldwin or is it Parkland? Because I may split out the Parkland stuff and make a separate cutout video for that if most of you are here for Alec Baldwin. Or there are some of you who just show up and whatever the content is, you're here for it. You add to it. Hold on. Whew. That was a big one. But now we are ready. All right, so I see the votes coming in. It's a pretty big split between Parkland and Alec Baldwin. So we're going to get to both, and it's going to be interesting. Thank you for everyone saying bless you. So Alec Baldwin, he files a cross complaint, which means you are going to sue the other defendants on the side of the V that you are on. So a counter would be to the plaintiff on the other side of the V. A cross would be to the defendants on your side of the V, which is what he's done. And publicly, as the PR statement, he has said he is doing this to clear his name. I can't tell you how many friends I know or clients I have that they get sued. Literally just happened to me last week. They get sued and they want to know if they can sue the people suing them so that they can clear their name and get justice because their premiums are going to go up or they're going to lose business because people are hearing they're being sued, even though they think it has no merit. And they think it's totally unfair that they're being sued here and it's really going to affect their business and their livelihood. And they want to sue for that loss that they have because they were sued. And they don't usually like my answer, which is you can't do that. You can't just sue because you are sued. You can't file a cause of action against somebody because they sued you. That's not how it works, or that would literally happen in every single case. So that's not specifically what Baldwin is doing here. What Alec Baldwin is doing here is basically, what is it? It's from Dumb and Dumber where they're like, you're it, whatever. It bounces off me and says a cooties or something, whatever. You guys know I'm horrible at these one-liner type of jokes, but it's like cooties. It's like, no, whatever doesn't stick to me bounces off me and sticks to you. And that's what he's trying to do. All these allegations people are throwing at him, he's bouncing off of him and sticking it and pointing the finger to literally all of the other defendants in this case. And everybody else that could possibly have any blame, they're the ones who are actually to blame, not Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin was actually hurt more than anybody else in this case. And it's interesting that this is happening in a one-off from some other employee on set for the emotional damage. The original complaint is the emotional damage caused to her by Alec Baldwin and all these other companies dealing with the ammunition and the unsafe circumstances and unsafe environment and the gun going off and the death occurring. So it's not Helena Hutchins. It's not her family we're talking about. This is somebody else that has sued everyone. And maybe they were really emotionally distraught, but Alec Baldwin is taking this as an opportunity to clear his name in the legal sense. So what we're going to do, I have the document here, and Jeannie, I've called her my research assistant in the past. She is a subscriber who follows us on Instagram at Tragos Law again, if you want to. and she found this complaint and sent it to me. I have not read it. I have not seen the entire complaint. But usually you guys like when we run through the complaint. So what I will do to start is I will go through the causes of action and explain what Alec Baldwin is doing with these causes of action. And if you want, and you guys let me know in the comments, if you want me to go through the whole complaint or most of the complaint, then I can quickly go through it and we can kind of look at some of these allegations. He puts a lot of pictures in here. It's actually a pretty interesting complaint that I just kind of skimmed through. And while skimming through it, just as a side note, I was basically hit like a brick wall hit me that the main dude from Vikings is in Rust. He's another cowboy in Rust. Did you all know that? The blonde dude, main character of Vikings. I did not know he was in Rust. If I knew he was in Rust, I'd be more likely to watch it than Alec Baldwin, because I'm a bigger fan of his than Alec Baldwin. Not that I don't like Alec Baldwin, I do, but I love that dude. It's probably not proving it since I don't even know what his name is, but okay, here we go. All right, I see some people voting for the whole thing, so let me know if you want to get to the whole thing, but let's just look at the causes of action here. So first cause of action, negligence against all cross defendants, leaving no one out. They were all negligent. But specifically, Gutierrez Reed, the armor, Halls, the AD or AP, was the assistant producer or director, I can't remember, Kenny, PDQ, and Zachary are all professionals who have expertise working with live and dummy ammunition, firearms, and movie props. They all were hired to source dummy ammunition, supply dummy ammunition, check the weapons and ammunition on set to ensure no live ammunition was brought to the set or loaded into the weapons. They were supposed to ensure the safety and proper organization of the props. And then he puts, who's supposed to be who? Kenny and PDQ, not the restaurant, I don't think. Gutierrez, Reed, Zachary, etc., Halls. And coordinate and ensure all safety of the movie set. Each cross-defendant understood that they were being hired to provide their professional services consistent with the standards of the safety governing their profession. They owed a duty to do that, and their conduct fell far below that duty of care. Gutierrez Reed was the armorer. She was to ensure the safe and secure use and storage of weapons and ammunition. She breached her duty in a myriad of ways. So in case anybody was wondering, is Alec Baldwin going to point the finger at Gutierrez Reed? The answer is a resounding yes. And her failure to confirm that the ammunition she loaded into the gun was actually dummy ammunition, and her disorganized storage of ammunition, where there's a bunch of pictures in this complaint. We'll at least look at some of the pictures. She loaded into the gun, her disorganized storage around the prop cart and prop truck that made intermingling of real and dummy ammunition possible led to the live ammunition being loaded into Baldwin's weapon. So it's interesting that they're calling it Baldwin's weapon, right? On October 21st, 2021. Halls was the assistant director for the Rust production, responsible for set safety and handling of guns. He breached this duty by failing to adequately check the chamber of the weapon or failing to raise any concern as to what he saw, proceeding to declare a gun cold despite any assurance that it was in fact cold, which led to live ammunition being loaded into Baldwin's weapon on October 21st, 2021. Halls also breached his duty of care by neglecting his duties as safety coordinator and failing to hold the required safety briefings and to distribute the necessary safety protocols. And as we remember how the story goes, Halls handed Baldwin the loaded gun. Kenny was the armor assistant and the armor mentor for Rust production, the supplier of weapons and ammunition. He owns PDQ, which supplied the ammunition. He breached his duty by allowing live ammunition to be intermingled with the dummy rounds. Zachary was the props master, was ultimately responsible for all the props, including the guns. They breached their duty by failing to ensure the safety and security of the weapons and the ammunition used, the props truck and the props cart, and led to live ammunition being loaded into Baldwin's gun. Again, Baldwin's gun. As a direct, proximate, and foreseeable result of Gutierrez-Reed, Hall's, Kenny's, PDQ, and Zachary's breach of their of their respective duties, Baldwin has suffered substantial damages and will continue to suffer damages in the future, including physical and emotional injury, missed income from lost business opportunities, and other financial damage. Do you think Alec Baldwin actually has damages? Yes or no? Yes damages or no damages? Because in my opinion, he absolutely has gotten fired or passed over from jobs, as he alleges in the actual factual portion of this complaint. Absolutely, he has damages. Now, who caused those damages? Because if you cause your own damages, it's on you. But to me, I think absolutely his brand has suffered. All right, second cause of action, equitable indemnification against all cross defendants. Cross defendants did not ensure the safe handling of the management of the firearms. As a result, Baldwin has substantial damages. Baldwin is entitled to equitable indemnification from cross defendants for his damages, including any damages arising out of plaintiff Mitchell's claims in the lawsuit. What this means is, and this is another count for that, what this means is if we do lose and I have to pay any damages, all of you guys should have to pay my damages because it's your fault and everything that I did wrong was because of you. And again, this is a legitimate claim. If Baldwin didn't do anything wrong in how he handled the gun, and if he did not have a duty to check the gun before shooting it, if he didn't have a duty to check the barrel, if he didn't have a duty to check to make sure they're not live rounds, then this all makes sense, right? But what his duty is and was in that situation is going to dictate whether or not he can win these claims. And if it really was everybody else's duty and everybody else's expertise and not expected from him, then he could win this claim. And if he does, he's going to ask for them to pay for any of his damages. The prayer for relief. Compensatory, nominal, statutory, and punitive damages where applicable. Reasonable litigation expenses, attorney's fees, and costs. So he wants all the damages. Normal damages, punitive damages, attorney's fees and costs, interest, and anything else the court deems reasonable and just. So he is literally saying that this liability bounces off of me and sticks to you. That's literally what this complaint is about. And he's even admitting that it's happening because he wants to clear his name. That is one of the main focuses of filing this lawsuit. To clear his name publicly. And what he's done is say that, yes, there were a lot of mistakes made. The handling of the weapons, the handling of the ammunition, the mixing, the storing, how everything was done was a major problem. But it wasn't my fault. Everybody else was supposed to make sure that this was a safe set. Everybody else was supposed to make sure that live ammunition did not make it on the set. Yes, here it is. Thank you, Ashley. I'm the rubber, you're the glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. I was not even close. I was like Samsonite from Dumb and Dumber. Samsonite, I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though. Yeah, that's basically what this complaint kind of reminds me of, is that he's literally saying, I'm the rubber, you're the glue to the rest of the defendants. All right. So I hear most people saying yes to the entire document. So what we're going to do is we are going to quickly, more quickly than I usually do, go through some of these claims. And we're not going to go through everything, but all right. The hiring of Gutierrez-Reed is where we're going to start. Baldwin had no role in hiring Gutierrez-Reed. He didn't know she was being considered and didn't recommend her or weigh in on her hiring. So because this can go the other way, right? Because he's one of the executive producers. So if it's a vicarious liability issue, which we've talked about in other videos, where your employer or the boss can be held responsible for what you do, he's first got to wash his hands that, he didn't pick these people and they screwed up. So it's still not his fault. Instead, Gutierrez-Reed reached out to Kenny. So they're connected. The procurement of ammunition and prop weapons. Zachary and Gutierrez-Reed were responsible for getting these weapons and props. Here are the photos after the safety concerns. I mean, look at these photos. Ammunition, much of which unlabeled, was strewn throughout the premises. I mean, that is pretty scary. I have to admit, that is pretty scary. But here's a follow-up question I would have in Alec Baldwin's deposition. Did you never walk by these carts? Did you never look at how the ammunition was stored? Did you never see any of this and tell people to clean it up? You're an executive producer. You're the star actor. You're the one handling these weapons. What do you think your duty is? I would ask him that question. As professional suppliers of dummy and blank ammunition, they're required to carefully store them. I agree. Segregate, label, and organize the ammunition. I agree. And they failed to do so. I agree. They absolutely have liability. According to Kenny's insurance company, Farmers, after Mr. Kenny and his business tendered their defense to Farmers, the attorney suggests that PDQ Arm and Prop had operated from the property. Specifically, he said Mr. Kenny communicated his willingness to be part of the Rust production, negotiated the terms of participation, sent the gun and ammunition involved in the incident, and sent invoices and ammunition from the property. Kenny and PDQ are bound by their lawyers' admissions that they supplied the gun and ammunition. This is using lawyers' statements against him. Where have we heard that before? So this is from the FBI analysis, which there's a lot of that throughout this complaint. 50 live cartridges were found. I mean, just from this cross section they took, it's more live than dummy, which is not the case, but there were a lot of live cartridges found. The results clearly show live ammunition ended up on the Rust prop cart. Scary. I mean, he shows pictures later, like if all of the actors knew that this is how sloppy it was, we never would have acted the scenes out the way that we did. More live cartridges found by the FBI. Baldwin arrives on set and receives gun safety and training and begins filming. Training lasted around 90 minutes. She reminded Baldwin of the gun safety measures that he had learned at substantially similar gun trainings throughout his career, such as always putting the gun down immediately once cut is called, and not to force the gun if it jams. Why? Why do you think you have to put it down immediately once cut is called? Why don't you force it if it jams? Those are questions I would ask him at his deposition to see what he knows and what he would say and how he would explain it. Gutierrez-Reed did not instruct Baldwin to check the gun himself. In fact, she told Baldwin it was her job to check the gun, not his. By the way, her lawyers have responded to this complaint saying, hogwash, you know that you have responsibility in this and only you because you're the one with the gun in your hands. I'm pretty sure that's what they said or something like that. Don't quote me, but it was something like that where it's going to come hard back at Alec Baldwin now. And if all these people are smart, they'll all get together against Baldwin and say, listen, we all had a part in how the ammunition got there. But if he would have just checked the gun, none of this would have happened. And he is the actual cause for all of these problems. Baldwin believed, based on prior gun safety training he received on movie sets, that the actors should not unilaterally check the guns for live ammunition. If actors want to check the guns for their own peace of mind, they should check the gun only with the armorer closely supervising the process. In other words, actors may jointly inspect the gun with the armorer, but never on their own. That's not according to some of the actors that came out publicly against Baldwin and how he handled this gun. Baldwin had been told during prior gun safety trainings that a gun must be rechecked and cleared if the armorer if the actor unilaterally checks the gun without the armorer's supervision. Baldwin followed Gutierrez-Reed's instructions during the gun safety training. Interesting. All right, from the moment Baldwin arrived, the morale on the set and the camaraderie of the crew was apparent. Everyone seemed to be enjoying the experience, not what it sounded like from some of the other people later, right? It was proceeding smoothly. What an incredible first week. Then it started to turn with Lane Looper, which we read about, who was, I think, one of the camera assistants who had a problem. Baldwin, came to the rescue, gave some more money, tried to make things a little bit better. And then the events of October 21st, which we know because we've gone through ad nauseum. And here we go. Yeah. Gutierrez Reed wasn't there. So Baldwin was relieved of the weapon by Halls, who was responsible for handling guns on set. So Halls and Gutierrez Reed are the main people. And then Zachary, PDQ, people that supplied the guns. And then Kenny, the armor assistant. That's who he's mainly pointing the finger at. Zachary knew about Gutierrez Reed misplacing things and mixing them up. Yet, as far as Baldwin is aware, made no complaints to the production company or others on set. Let's read this text. Hey, you may know this and it's hearsay, but I'm telling you this because it's info you should have, especially given the investigation. I just heard from someone claiming they know the driver of your prop truck that the armor allegedly went out target shooting last night with the gun Alec had and then fired. There's your box of rounds. You said you don't know where they came from. Given what you told me about the armor misplacing things and mixing them up, there's the live rounds right there. I would disclose that to the police if that's not info already known. Wow. Just going out on set, target shooting with a gun that's going to be used as a prop gun later. Gutierrez Reed professed to have no knowledge as to the origin of this ammunition. She was happy that they had a full box of dummy rounds to work with because Sarah, as prop manager, had brought dummy boxes to the set as part of her duties. Regardless, they maintained a workspace that was reckless and disorganized, and I don't disagree with that. Here's some more pictures. There's a failure to secure the weapons. No disagreement there. It's a good complaint. I mean, I got to be honest. It's a good complaint, which we shouldn't be surprised for Alec Baldwin's lawyers, right? And even in the belt here that Alec Baldwin was wearing that Zachary gave to him, again, why is Zachary giving you stuff? Why are you taking stuff from Halls and Zachary if Gutierrez Reed is supposed to be the one handing you this stuff, right? But even those were live rounds. Very interesting. So he goes in again, how FBI analysis, Gutierrez Reed's fingerprints were on the ammunition, which we knew. Before loading the gun, she claims she only shook the ammunition box and heard the jingling sound, which was what a dummy round should sound like. But actually, her fingerprints are on there, so she had to touch it as well, right? She claims that she checked each round individually before loading it into Baldwin's gun. Which, again, that doesn't seem true, right? Unless she thinks somebody took the gun, took out the dummy rounds, loaded the live rounds, and that's how we got here. That's really the only other explanation. She gave him his gun before lunch with 5 dummy rounds. This is all facts we've heard before. Cold gun was yelled before he was given the gun. All right, in the months after the death, there was a bunch of investigations, and we have an email here. Safety coordinator Halls, as safety coordinator, Halls was also supposed to hold safety meetings every single day that a firearm was to be used on the Russ set. So these standards and these procedures and processes, it's just like companies, right? You're supposed to do all this to be safe. Almost nobody does everything they should. So when we do these investigations in wrongful death cases or these tragic accidents, this is the exact kind of case we would have. And we say, why didn't you just do the inspections like you were supposed to every single day? Why? You couldn't waste the 10 minutes that it took? The answer is probably no. They couldn't. They were rushing. They were trying to get things done. They were trying to save money. They were trying to make time. Halls did not do so. Text messages to Halls would show he had been reminded multiple times this responsibility confirms as much. Hey, friends, just as a reminder that we need to do safety meetings in the morning, especially on stunt days and on days we're moving locations. Y'all are awesome, and thank you for everything. Dave, per Joel, we need safety meetings every morning. Policies and procedures and handbooks and rule books, they're there for a reason and should be used. They are created for a reason, usually by lawyers, risk assessors. It's also discovered that Zachary harbored serious reservations regarding Gutierrez Reed's performance, including regarding her alcohol use away from set. He didn't air these concerns until after the fatal shooting. So Baldwin was acting like he's not in on any of this. There's lots of discussions, text messages, email chains, Slacks that Baldwin's not on. I think she was so drunk that she didn't even know she brought live ammunition onto the truck when she went to go get a gun from the safe. To me, she's cooked. And criminal charges better be coming if she was drunk on set handling live ammunition with lives in her hands. I told you Hannah was blackout drunk last weekend, right? It's not good. FBI also found Gutierrez-Reed's fingerprints on the live ammunition. Now that's pretty damning. I'm wondering. So Sarah Zachary, David Halls, and Alec Baldwin. I don't know what this is. It says item 11. Ammunition box, item 11, containing live ammunition. Oh, item 11. Okay, fingerprints. Letter designation. So A, B, C, D. All right, item 11, fingerprints. A and D. Is that right? Identification A and A. I don't know. I don't have time to really dig into that. So yeah, her fingerprints being on the live ammunition is damning. So here we go. This is how I found out this dude from Vikings was on here. The Rust film had numerous scenes in which the actors engaged in shootouts. As alleged above, for example, the script of the scene Baldwin was rehearsing in the church ended with Colts exploding. Baldwin himself and numerous others on set could have been in the crossfire of live bullets had the scene played out. There are other catastrophic possibilities. Here are still images from the Rust filming where actor Travis Fimmel, I think that's the dude from Vikings, is pressing, a cocked gun with his finger on the trigger to the back of Brady Noon's head, which looks like a child. Clearly, both believed that the set was safe and cross-defendants had performed their jobs professionally and competently. Surely, neither would have acted in this scene had they known dozens of live rounds were scattered across the set and the guns Kenny and PDQ supplied were prone to breaking. Cross-defendants' recklessness put everyone in danger. The negligence of Gutierrez-Reed, Hall et al. Caused Baldwin substantial harm. 1 year later, Baldwin has suffered substantial damages as a result of the events of October 2021. Kind of like Johnny Depp's damages, right? Physical, emotional grief. Not a day goes by he doesn't think about that. And he's lost numerous job opportunities and associated income. For example, he's been fired from multiple jobs expressly because of the incident on Russ and has been passed over for a number of other opportunities, which is the direct result of their negligence. And everybody blaming him. If he can prove this, I don't disagree with him. If he can prove, and here's one thing that would really kill him if our boy lead Viking here, if he, I can't remember, what was his name? What was his name? It was this Ragnar? Was it Ragnar? Gosh, I can't even remember his name now. I'm getting Last Kingdom and Vikings confused. But what if he says in deposition, no, I checked my gun before. Hold on a second. I just got an alert from my car that my doors are unlocked because my wife has my car. Which, you know how that goes. So yeah, what if Ragnar here says, no, I checked my gun. I made sure there was not live rounds in there. That's very bad for our boy, Alec Baldwin. All right. Yes, he was Ragnar. Thank you, Chris Tiger Babe. Okay. So that's all we're going to read from the complaint, but now is the time to get to some of your questions. I'll just make sure she has the key and then I can lock it from my phone. All right. Let's get to some questions here, people. First off, a bunch of new members here. So thank you to all of the new members. We are planning a members-only chat here. It's never a legal topic or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about missing anything crazy. But some perks for the members. Thank you, Robin's Viewpoint, and all the new members today. Sarah, you guys are awesome. All right, the car is locked, and we are loaded and ready to go. All right, Donna, I agree with the filing. I agree that the armor and team were the guilty parties. Interesting. He has already said so much, P-Hop says, in his interview. Can't that hurt him now? Yes, but it seems like they're doubling and tripling down, and this is what they're going with. They're going with his story, that he doesn't have to check the gun, all of his training. Even Hannah Gutierrez-Reed said he doesn't have to check the gun, that everything is all good. Sorry, we're having some issues here. So that they're sticking with his story. So I don't think anything in this complaint doesn't seem to oppose what he said in his interview. New York Mom, I'm confused. I can see not being on the hook as an actor, but wasn't he executive producer? Yes, but in this complaint, he makes sure to say, not a decision maker. I didn't come up with these people. I didn't make these decisions. I just showed up and they made me an executive producer, probably because of the money I was making, the money I was giving to put me on as a credit for that. And that's one of the ways I was going to get paid, so they didn't have to pay as big of an actor salary. John O'Rourke, you would think Baldman, producer, had a clause with Halls and Kennedy once hired stating if an accident happened, they would be liable, period. Thoughts? So yes, there is usually indemnification clause in these things, but he's an executive producer as well. So would he have been one of the indemnifying parties, which is interesting? They all should have insurance for this. It's all very confusing, which is why I don't think this is about money, because I think Baldwin has insurance for this. I think this is about clearing his name. I really think that's what it's about. JP, Baldwin waiting this long, 14 months to file a cross complaint, says to me he must know he could potentially be going down and will do some time. So yeah, the criminal charges are still pending. We don't know what's going to happen with that. Or I should say it's pending criminal charges at all. There's not any pending right now, but the investigation, I guess, is about complete. We did a video on that already. But to me, I think they all came together and wanted to settle with Helena Hutchins' family, and they did. Probably for a rather large amount. But this complaint, my guess is all these defendants don't want to pay every single person that was on set that files a complaint against them for emotional damages. So my guess is this one's going to be a little bit more of a fight. And so he thinks, while this complaint's going on, I have a chance to clear my name and also sue all these defendants, so I'm going to take it. Azam, in my opinion, whoever is the first to prepare the gun is the one who is responsible. Was his interview on ABC News helping him here? Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Azam. And I would say it didn't really help or hurt him. I think at the end of the day, it's going to hurt him. It doesn't hurt him with this complaint, because this is his people writing this complaint. They're going to study that interview and make sure they don't say anything that impeaches himself in this complaint. Hi, Peter. Do you know why the feds are involved? Maybe because the ammunition. Did it cross state lines? I'm not positive why the FBI came in and did this investigation. It may just be too big for the local police. That's a good question. I'm not positive. Okay. Andrew Storm said, isn't it the person who fired the gun that is most liable? People would say, and I think if this ever were to go to a jury, then I would be interested to hear what a jury would say. So what do you guys think? I mean, we've talked about this a bunch. Would you say just one of these entities is liable? Is it just the armorer? Is it just the ammunition supplier? Is it just David Halls, the associate director or producer? Is it just Alec Baldwin, since he's the one that fired the gun? That's the question. What do you guys think? You guys are jurors. If there was a percentage, and maybe we'll do this eventually in this case, where we list, because that's what happens on verdict forms. There are 5 names there, and you as the juror have to write the percentage down. Is it 10% for this person, 50% for that person? Is it exactly 20% each for all 5 people? That's the interesting part here, right? To me, it feels like Gutierrez-Reed has the most liability. But if I had to pick a second one, I could be convinced it's Alec Baldwin. David Halls is up there as well. But it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. So people are saying Baldwin is the most guilty. Baldwin is the most responsible. EJ said it's a combined crapshoot. The armor. Yeah. So it's differing opinions. If we were all in a room together, all 2,000 of us, wow, that's pretty good for a Monday afternoon, right? Has everybody hit the like button? Hopefully. But if all of us were in a room together, I don't think we'd come up with the same exact percentage at first. But I think we could probably find some common ground pretty quickly here. I really think that we could, because when you try to think about assigning percentage of fault, and you have to do it, you really have to look at what each person's duty was and what their actions were. And if the duty of Gutierrez Reed, to me, mixed with her actions, if she was really getting drunk, if her fingerprints are on all the live ammunition, if she was target practice shooting on set with the same gun with live ammunition, she's going to eat the most liability to me. But then Alec Baldwin, who holds the gun in his hand, pulls the trigger, fires the weapon, doesn't check it, to me, that's probably the person that has a good portion of liability. Chris Tiger Babe, question: Why did they wait till after to speak up about her drinking and blackouts? So this is going to be a duty of reasonable care. Would a reasonable person have done this? And I agree with you. I think the answer is no. But you guys tell me, what do you think Hollywood's like? You don't think a lot of people are going out and getting drunk every night? And I don't think people like pointing the finger because they don't want the finger pointed back at them. So that's probably why. But now everybody's in CYA mode. Shelley, actor, not liable, executive producer, partially liable. I mean, we've got all sorts of things going on, right? Competing factors here. It's a good point, Shelley. Just BKZ. As he had been in many films that involve firearms, he would have been aware of the importance of safety meetings and should have been aware of Russ lacking them. It's negligent at best. And how about just walking by the slop shop that is their cart and their van or whatever, their ammunition van or their prop van? To me, that you got to know that if you have Alec Baldwin's experience. Like, I feel like just myself looking at those pictures, I'd be like, wow, and I have no experience. Catherine O'Neill, new member as well. Anybody that wants to join, it's in the description below. Don't feel like you have to. Val Porter, do you think that Gutierrez's career is over as an armorer? Yes. Sad as it sounds. Yes, I do think it's over. Cat Yarb, did you get your Blizzard? I still have not. I have to make that happen. I have to make that happen. Thank you for reminding me. Maybe tonight. Actually, I think we have like a Friendsgiving tonight, so probably not tonight, but this week. Cody Keith, the FBI is involved because Santa Fe Sheriff's Office requested assistance with forensics from what I have seen. So the investigation is still Santa Fe Sheriff's Office. Thank you, Cody. You guys are awesome. Like, I'm not kidding or blowing smoke when I say you guys make this so much better. I was going to come on here and talk about a lot of this without having the actual complaint because I didn't have time to find it today. I've been literally slammed. And if anybody followed me on Twitter, I was going to say it. We were talking Daryl Brooks today, but it's not even happening today. So that was my B. So we audible to Alec Baldwin and I didn't have the complaint. So I was going to talk about some of the reports about it, which still would have been some good information, but Jeannie stepped up, found the complaint, sent it to me on Instagram. If any of you guys, I would love for you to follow us on Instagram and Twitter here at Tragos Law. Those are, apps that we do have a lot of conversations on. Okay. Cerebellum, you're going to be our transition comment. Thanks, Peter. Been following since Herd and Depp. Lawyer, peeps. How do I gift memberships? Cerebellum. If anybody wants a membership gifted by Cerebellum, get in the comments. Let her know how to do it. I have no idea how to do it. So Bodie's going to be our transition comment, actually. Peter, do victims need a lawyer? The answer is it depends, right? It really depends. Not in every situation, but in many situations, yes, and it can't hurt you to have one. If you're going to file a claim of any sort, then yes, you need a lawyer. If you're going to go talk to law enforcement, you should probably talk to a lawyer first. That's how I would say. But let's talk about the Parkland shooter trial. We've done a lot of videos on the judge. We've had some disagreement in the chats. It's been respectful. It's been interesting. It's been a learning experience for all of us, and we appreciate everybody's comments on it. To me, this is a difficult situation for everybody. We knew it was going to be difficult. The judge had a difficult job to do. It's easy to play Monday morning quarterback or to sit here and watch. So we try to be respectful for everybody. And I think the judge did a great job in certain circumstances. There were other things I thought the judge did that I thought were not the best and not the appropriate way to handle the situation. And we talked about that, especially when you talk about how it affects criminal defense attorneys, criminal defendants, potential jurors, and the trial system as a whole, the criminal justice system as a whole. And the president of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys wrote a letter to the chief judge trying to get his attention, basically get a reprimand, or a change of out of the criminal sector for this judge? Well, the victims' parents in this case, the victims and their parents in this case, are very astute, very smart, very with this legal process, very frustrated by parts of it. But the way they've been involved, the way that they spoke to the media, the way that they spoke at sentencing, and the way that they wrote this letter and came together shows me they're pretty united. I have some friends that I was with over the weekend that represent some of these victims and their families. The part of the Florida Justice Association, plaintiffs, personal injury lawyers down in South Florida. They've been going to a lot of these hearings, going to a lot of the sentencing, and have been involved. And it shows, right, that they have some lawyers with them. Speaking of victims having lawyers. So let's take a look at this. And it's always hard when I take it also from Jeannie as the actual windows, but we're going to do our best to pick the right ones here. So yes, here we go. Page 1 to the Honorable Jack Tudor. So they write it, boom, right to the same person today or Friday's date. And they're taking the same angle that the FACDL took. We are families of the victims taken from us by the Parkland murderer. We are writing in response to media reports stating that you received letters criticizing Judge Shearer, and we would like to offer our observations based on what we witnessed during the proceedings. And here's a really important part. The victims are an important part of the criminal process in Florida, and we have been pushing laws up to make their voices heard, make them a part of the process, make them understand what's happening. Sometimes going a little too far. We talked about whether or not victims should have to approve sentences and why that could be problematic and take a lot more resources and time. Well, that's a discussion for another episode. But this is important, and this chief judge is going to care what these victims' families say. We respect Judge Shearer and feel that the episode underlying the criticism was blown out of proportion, as explained in the paragraphs below. We disagree with the letter's complaint that Judge Shearer's treatment of the defense lawyers at the conclusion of the trial was detrimental to the judicial system. On the contrary, we believe that her decisions and actions during the past 4 years exhibited an intense effort to be fair to all parties in honor of the judicial system. The fact that we did not agree with many of her decisions demonstrates her dedication to that ideal. That's a good point. They can say, we didn't disagree with a lot of her decisions. They're not lawyers, but we didn't disagree with a lot of her decisions. But she was trying to be fair, and we understood that. And this is big of them, right? Because they criticize the jury, they criticize the defense, they criticize the process as a whole, and the laws and the state. So for them to come out and support the judge, I think is an important fact. I really do. What angered our families is that the defense strategy had nothing to do with the facts and the evidence. Instead, they relied on things such as cozying up with the killer to humanize him for the jury, creating visual cues to present the murderer as a child, such as lowering his chair, delaying justice for 4 years via legal maneuvers, baiting the judge. I mean, there was COVID, but I agree with them there. Baiting the judge to create appealable moments, repeatedly calling for mistrials with no authentic basis. A lot of lawyers do stuff like that. Curating mental health data. That's a big one that we've already discussed. Circumventing evidence rulings, and poisoning the jury by falsely accusing a highly respected prosecutor of misconduct. We are sensitive to the fact that the defense team plays a critical role in the justice system and that they had a job to do. But in our case, they went beyond just doing their job. And a lot of you said stuff like this, so now we get it straight from the victims. Another murderer who was tried in the same building received the death sentence the same week our murderer received life. That other murderer did not get the money or the manpower that was afforded the Parkland murderer because the defense team made it their personal mission to win the Parkland case. Any means justified the end, including bringing in outside counsel, inundating the prosecution with over 200 witnesses, and spending countless dollars. Now, I will say that does seem unfair. And if I was the other defendant, I'd be pissed about that, wouldn't you? Why does this guy get all the money and all the attention and all the power? But tons of victims and tons of defendants have this same complaint throughout the public defender system, the state attorney's office, how the state attorney's office also spent a lot more money on that case, right? So if we're looking at how this was all done, that's how the world works. People were very angry at times about the Gabby Petito situation and said there are thousands of victims literally that we don't know where they are every single day, that have families wanting to know what happened. Why is she getting all this media attention? Why is all this money and outpouring and time going into her case? So I do think it's difficult to look at each case and try to say, why is more time spent there? Why is more money spent there? Very difficult, but it's just kind of this bigger picture we have to discuss, as a society, to try to figure out some of that stuff. And sometimes the answer is the government gets to make decisions. So you elect people to make those decisions, right? It's tough. It's really tough. Some of the families chose to address the pain these actions caused in their post-trial statements in court. Those comments were spun by the public defender's office as the letter writers as thinly veiled threats against the defense team. The comments were emotional, but characterizing them as threats is ridiculous. The public defender made a mountain out of a molehill. So first of all, I'll say they were thinly veiled threats is even strong. I wouldn't really call them threats, but they did bring up, they hope bad karma comes to your kids. And that's really kind of where I took issue. And as I've said millions of times already, I would have just sat there and took it if I was the public defender. I would not have said anything, and I would not done, as they say, the public defender made a mountain out of a molehill by embarking on a false morality drama to portray the defense team as victims, going so far as to say nobody in the courtroom had endured what they had endured. This was insensitive and inflammatory, considering that the families of the murdered victims were in the room. I agree there. That was not a good look. I think he said the venom, and he meant the way that we did for doing our job, but still, bad move. That was the one thing he said that was really, really in poor taste. The public defender was allowed to make his statement, and the others, and he was not summarily dismissed. I disagree. He was literally, by definition, summarily dismissed. Only when the defense team and the public defender, give me a second now to pull up page 2 here. And I just X'd out of that, so that's gone. Hopefully you guys didn't want to reference that again. Repeatedly refused to comply with the judge's orders. And did she direct them to take a seat? We applaud the judge for putting an end to the public defender's disruptive and theatrical performance. Judge Shearer conducted herself with patience, professionalism, restraint, and when it was all over, compassion. We have noted the social media commentary by the defense bar regarding the hug. Once court had concluded and the murderer had been led from the room, the judge acquiesced to our request to speak to her. We wanted to thank her. She showed compassion by stepping down from the bench to personally share her condolences for the loss of our loved ones, an act that touched our hearts. And, we had no problem with her hugging the victims in this case. We talked about it. I've seen it. Actually, I've never seen it before personally, specifically a judge coming down. I've seen judges give condolences from the bench, never come down and hug them, but I didn't have a problem with that. Among our group are the prosecuting attorneys. That's a different story. We already did a video on that, though. We don't need to rehash it. Whom we have come to deeply respect. 2 of them are retiring, and that was their last day in court. We believe that Judge Shearer shares our respect for the retiring attorneys, not only for their conduct during the trial, but also for their decades of service. We find it distressing that uninformed individuals are criticizing the judge for showing that respect by hugging 2 venerable prosecutors after their last day of service had concluded. So I do take a little issue with uninformed individuals because the defense bar and attorneys in the state of Florida are not uninformed individuals. I don't know if that's who they're directing this at, but they are not uninformed individuals. We tried hundreds of cases to see that this doesn't happen and shouldn't happen, and judges have been reprimanded for doing things like this in the past. To cast that act of basic human kindness given in a private moment as a sign of bias is disingenuous at best. It wasn't a private moment. The cameras were on. Everybody was watching. They knew it was still in public court. This is not at a dinner party or at an Inns of Court where everybody hugs everybody. It's hugs and kisses all around for judges and lawyers and everything like that. It would have been no problem if Judge Shearer went back into chambers and hugged them, or literally the state attorney's office is in the courthouse most of the time. She could have walked up to the 4th floor in Pinellas. It's up on the 4th floor, state attorney's office, and gone and given him a hug. Nobody would have a problem with that. We're not saying you can't be a human being. We're not saying you can't be friends. We're not saying you can't love each other and help each other and do everything you can for each other, right? And I understand. I am with these victims 100%. They can say and do whatever they want. They have been brilliant throughout the process. I can't imagine what they're going through. No one should go through what they went through. And I understand all the venom they have for Nicholas Cruz. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I get it. I get it 100%. For everybody that's frustrated by it. I'm just giving you somebody who's literally on the rules committees in Florida and how and why we write these rules, it shouldn't have happened in open court. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. I get it. I get it. But I think that at least some of the individuals are informed. Online, there are uninformed individuals everywhere. So I get it. We offer these thoughts not only as observers, but also as participants in the in the justice system, and hope that you will consider them in any deliberation regarding Judge Scheer. And then signed the families. I thought this was huge. Huge of them. Important, well written, well thought. Huge of them. And I think it's going to go a long way in what this chief judge, if he does anything at all, I think this was huge by them. And I appreciate it. Anytime victims will take part in the process, they were respectful here. They talked from their point of view or spoke from their point of view and how they understand and how they saw it and how they felt through the process and what they felt of the prosecutors and the judge and the defense attorneys. I thought it was fair game. Everything they said about the defense attorneys there was fair game. They gamed the system. They spent so much money. They wanted to put this as a feather in their cap. They used mental health inappropriately. They tried to get mistrials even though it wasn't appropriate. I mean, we've seen lawyers do that on both sides, right? If you think about some other cases, Edgecombe and Rittenhouse and Arbery and the George Floyd trials, I mean, we've seen this type of behavior out of lots of lawyers. It's totally okay for the victims' families to say this in this letter. That's their point of view. That's their opinion. That's how they felt. All right, let's get to some questions here. Robin's viewpoint. Are you doing DB live tomorrow? I'm not going to watch the entire sentencing live. That's not really what my channel is about. I think you guys know that. I think you guys have a lot of people you like watching their live stream. We might do parts live, or maybe we'll do a recap after and we'll play some highlights. That's what we usually do, which people enjoy. And we break them down. We explain them. We see what Darrell Brooks is doing, explain how that affects the process. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Please, if you subscribe, hit that reminder bell, which Robin's viewpoint, I know you do. Hit that reminder bell so you'll be alerted whenever we do set our live. John Garner, Peter, can you gift us peanut butter cup blizzards? I would love to. If we ever do like a meetup or whatever, let's do it at Dairy Queen and I'm buying everybody peanut butter cup blizzards. Vivian Wright, thanks. This has been great. Thank you, Vivian. John O'Rourke, the best, brightest, and friendliest chat in the YouTube game. Keep coming back with your great and fair comments. A lot going on. Sorry about the spelling today. Don't apologize for the spelling. Can she be struck off for this? Leslie Ann said, no, she could be reprimanded at some point or have to take some extra CLEs, or he could move her out of the criminal division, but I don't really expect anything major to happen to her if I'm being honest. Kindy Elkin. Are convicted people required to listen to the victim's statement, specifically thinking about DB disrespecting all the families who were hurt? So yes, I do think if he's crazily disruptive, the judge could still put him in the other courtroom, but usually the judge will force the defendant to sit there after they've been convicted and listen to what the families say about them at sentencing. Why would it be better if the cameras were off? It wouldn't change what happened or whether it was appropriate or not. I think the actions in front of the camera shows she was not hiding anything. I just don't think it should have been in those courts are open and are public. That's where I don't think it should happen. Whether the cameras are on or off, that's still public. I was saying the cameras were on because she knew or should have known that the cameras were there on and rolling. But anyways, I would consider that courtroom public. DB highlights, nothing beats the box fort, Gloria. Will you be doing the decision on the Scott Peterson trial? No, Leslie, and I'm not following that. Thank you, Catherine. All right. So that's it for the Parkland judge letter written by the victim's family. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that aspect of it. We are probably going to cut this and make it its own little replay video for anyone that just came for Alec Baldwin or left after the Alec Baldwin, didn't know that this was coming. So we're probably going to cut that out and repost that. So don't get mad when you see that one pop up. You've already been here, listened to, and got your questions answered, hopefully. But I do have a couple other Alec Baldwin questions that have come in. Editor Danielle Marie said, I am wondering what legal text is that will be used to determine Baldwin's liability? What defines what his duty was? Well, interesting you should ask. The way you determine what reasonable care is, or what a duty of a reasonable person is usually to get experts or people that are similarly situated to testify and explain what that duty of care is. For example, we have a gym case where we have an expert on running gyms and how gym equipment works and how it should be maintained. We get an expert for that. If we have a medical malpractice, we get a similarly situated surgeon to explain that a spine surgeon should do this. And if they don't do that, then they're negligent. So that's why we're talking about the gun experts, the actor experts, the armor experts that are going to show up and say, who's supposed to do what? Where's the training? Where's the expertise? And that's how it will be determined. And a jury will eventually decide. Icegal, I'd rather Alec Baldwin said, I had to check it, not my accountability. I had to check it, not my accountability in the work process, but as a human being, I feel responsible. But he even tried to blame the gun label. Yeah, he's never going to say that. That would basically just be admitting liability. Ro Mama, when is the Boone trial starting? Early 2022. I think either January or February. We will be on that one, though. Don't you worry. Vanessa Anderson, what about the Delphi case? Will you be covering that? Yeah, I'll probably cover it as it gets closer to the trial. I don't usually like to cover like right when the arrest happens or if they're searching for someone. It's not really like as much of a news show. I don't think you guys care about, me trying to figure out who done it kind of thing. I think you're here mostly for the legal process, to explain the legal process, what's happening, how I think it's going to affect the process and guilt or innocence or guilt or not guilty. So once we get deeper down into that, then yes, we will be covering it. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Vanessa, and send me stuff as it comes out in Delphi. And anybody, if you're interested in a case, send me stuff. And the more of you that send it to me, YouTube community page, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, that's how we pick our content. You guys completely control it. Karina A. Hi, Peter. Pablo Lyle's case next, please. I don't really know anything about that case, but if you guys are interested in Pablo Lyle's, please let me know. Eisgo. Not being public is open to corruption and makes judges and lawyers lazier. Being open creates criminal fames. It's like you choose deduction and induction type of confusion for me. So I disagree. I think that, again, this is the point about the defense attorneys, regardless of what you think about how they did it. This is their job, right? And when our kids are at school and I'm sitting next to a judge in the pew watching the chapel program together or watching our kids play basketball against each other, it is not the same as when we're in court. And we can be friends and we can high five and hug and say, go Eagles together. And that's fine. But what we can't do is hug in court, the judge look at me and give me a wink and say, yeah, I'll go with what Mr. Trago says, not what Ms. Johnson says. We can't have that happening in court. So that's the difference. It's the difference between work and personal life. If they're personal friends, that's fine. But they can't be aligned at work because she has to be an impartial judge. That's how I see it, at least. Yeah, people are saying the Florida versus Matthew Terry. I missed that. I just have not had time to follow it, so I'm probably not going to comment on it. I apologize for that. Okay, right at the 1 hour mark. It's amazing how that works out perfectly so many times. Check us out tonight, about 8:30, or 8 o'clock, something like that, p.m. Eastern. We're going to be posting that Chad Daybell hearing reaction, and there's some interesting nuggets in there. So if you're following that Valo Daybell case, check that out. More updates on Lori's competence and things like that. The judge still hasn't made a decision on whether they're going to sever, but there is an interesting twist that may happen, which would be incredibly interesting and educational to watch if we got cameras in that courtroom. It would be wild. All right, last comment here. John, Cruz is a terrible monster, but the victims are obviously biased, and I would be too. But stepping back and being unbiased was the judge's one responsibility, and she showed being biased. Judge Darrow is the judge I want. And I think people have opinions and feelings on both sides of this, and that's perfectly fine. That's what the chat is for. We're respectful. We have opinions on both sides. We appreciate those opinions because that's what makes the interesting conversation, and that's how we all learn, right? It's not an echo chamber in here. So I appreciate all of you, as always, joining. Hit that like button. Hopefully we got a couple thousand by the end of this video. Like it on the way out. Until next time, we'll talk Darrell Brooks tomorrow together.